Thank you all for attending. I hope I can see you all. It looks great. Um, if you're not wearing pants, please don't stand up.
22.
Nice shoes there, Mark.
Welcome to our sustaining members, our new members. I think we have a new member here. I'm going to call on you shortly, Chris. And first-time guests, dual platform users and switchers. We're going to have a super raffle registration tonight as well if Kurt gets his act together.
I'm working on it.
Other than Chris, is there anybody here who's here for the first time? Chris, would you like to say hello and tell everybody who you are, and have you sent us a check yet?
Answer to the last question, yes. The ingenious self-mailer went out yesterday with the postman, so I have to commend you guys on that self-mailer. Never seen it. I guess I've been a member of 3 different user groups. Originally, the Apple Corps of Dallas, which I joined in 1983 when I got my kids an Apple IIe.
Yay!
And then the Mac came out right after that, and I thought, man, I don't need another computer. You know, I can't believe it that Apple would do that. And then the following November, they had that take-home thing where you could take it home.
The test drive
For a weekend. And boy, I got hooked on that. And ironically, the thing that hooked me was the basic program that played the Beethoven Für Elisa Beethoven piano concerto. And I thought, man, that changes everything. And it was interesting looking back on it in terms of Apple Music years later and the scrap with the Beatles and everything. And so then the Apple Corps started a Mac group, and then about a year or 2 later, there was a group that was closer to home in Richardson. This is in Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we called it the Mac Packers. The Mac Packers, because everybody, you know, with the little bag and stuff. So I was also involved with that, and later in '93, I went to work for Apple when they opened the support center in Austin for the System 7 support. And I was a member of the CapMac, the Capital Mac User Group in Austin, which was a lot of fun. Bob Levitas was in that group, if you all remember Bob.
Sure.
And then eventually in '96, I moved out to Campbell and Cupertino and was there through 2001. And someday I'll tell that story in greater length. But then shortly after that, I moved over to Stanford and worked in the School of Education doing basically Mac support until I retired almost 2 years ago and moved down here. So I am happy to, you know, and I ran into Bob in the most serendipitous circumstances. We were both on jury duty, and this guy comes over to me and he says, "Hey, I like your watch and your phone." Turned out we both had the same iPhone, apparently. And, you know, so we're sitting there as jurors who aren't supposed to be communicating with each other very much, you know, rapidly talking back and forth about Mac stuff. So that was fun. And so kind of here I am. I'm happy
welcome
to be with y'all. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris, and welcome. And you know, we'll get you to fill us in a little bit more in the future sometime. Happy to have you.
We also have Richard Cox raise his hand as a new person.
Hello, Richard.
Hi there.
Tell us, how did you find out about us, and how long have you been a Mac person?
I looked for, with our current crisis, I looked for Zoom meetings and active MUG groups, but across the US, but there are very, very few, at least that I could find. And I've been using Macs since the early 80s. I made my living on the dark side, and then I'd go home and have a real computer.
Where are you located, Richard? Are you in
Leave
our
now.
area?
Well, I'm in Tucson at the moment. We spend the summers in Colorado when we can get there. Right now, we're closed off by the Indians. We're leaving the end of this month, but we're going to have to deke over to Albuquerque and go up from there.
Oh, okay.
Reservations are locked up.
Right.
Well, we hope you have a safe trip and that you can join us whenever you would like to, which kind of brings me to my next point, which is our next meeting will take place on Tuesday, June 16th. It'll take place at this virtual location, and whether or not it takes place in real life depends a lot on the city of Tucson and whether we're allowed to go back to our meeting place. But I think that at least for the foreseeable future, we're going to try to do both the, going to try to maintain the virtual meetings, and our chief officer of that area is Roger. He's playing our host here tonight, and he's going to put up our meetings in on YouTube for prosperity. For everyone who doesn't know, we have action in our Zoom group chat. Melissa has been posting some of the backgrounds she's been using behind her, the virtual backgrounds behind her, for download. So I think that if anybody wants a TMUG background, and you can use Melissa's work to disguise where you are, should you choose to do so.
I'm working on it.
All right, Kurt. So welcome to here and welcome to Zoom. Ward 6 is still closed, and until further notice, we'll probably be able to resume meetings there in the future. Are there any other announcements?
I have a note to add to what you just said. And that is, right now, Zoom doesn't allow what they call a virtual camera, which means the ability to bring in video production software. What I use is Ecamm, which is Mac only. But there's supposed to be a meeting I'm attending, virtual meeting I'm attending Thursday, that says there's a workaround, and also Zoom is aware that people want to use this virtual camera feature. So all that being said, to say that when we broadcast, if we can get sufficient bandwidth from the city of Tucson to do it, it won't be just a static picture. We'll be able to have multiple cameras and change things around and so forth. So just want to let you know that if all things work the way I would like, that it will be more interesting than just a talking head.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you for all you do, Roger.
Here, here. Are there any Zoom interface questions out there? Everybody seems to have their cameras working, and they seem to have, it seems like just about everybody has their microphone muted, which is probably the way to do it unless you are speaking. So if there's no Zoom questions, we're going to move on. Speak now. Forever hold your peace. I'm going to turn it over to Ridge for the monthly news and security update. I should have a little sound effect to announce Ridge, but that might have to come at a later date. So go ahead, Ridge.
Okay, I'm getting ready to share and I got to find it. Okay, here we go. Are you seeing it?
We are.
Okay. So we'll start this month with the there we go. With the software updates. And these, of course, are the common ones. Carbon copy cloner is important there. And the Firefox ones. And Google Chrome for anybody else on Little Snitch. And Microsoft Office also. The 365 of the 2019 has an update. And Pixelmator for those who use it. And WordPress and Zoom have all been updated. And Apple has updated its professional software, Logic Pro. And I wish I could get rid of some of this stuff that's on my screen, but I hope it's not on your screen.
It's not.
Okay, fine. Logic Pro got an update, and that's for people running Mojave and higher. And iOS 13.4.1 is now out for the iPhone SE, the newest iPhone SE. And the Watch OS got updated, and it's now available for your first and second generation watch models. And the Watch OS 625 and 537 is out now. And Xcode for those people who program has been updated. Coming, of course, is Catalina 10.15.5 and another iOS, iPad OS, tvOS, and Xcode updates as the screen shows. In their second quarter finance, even though they had low sales of Macs and so forth, they, because of COVID-19, they reported Apple grew and that services and wearables saw all-time record quarters. Their services grew 17% year over year. And they had a dividend that they declared as well. And repair notes now that when you send an Apple Watch in for repair, they want you to remove the band and any other accessories attached to the watch, as they won't return those items when the repair is complete. And then there's another report that if you have an Apple laptop with USB-C ports on both sides and you start charging via the ports on the left side, the laptop gets hot enough to trigger the fans to maximum speed. If you charge via the right side, you don't get as high a temperature, so the fans don't start up. And no information so far if Apple is in the process of a fix. And on May 4th, Apple revised the 13-inch MacBook Pro, and Tony's going to tell you all about that later. And Apple has also announced a date for Worldwide Developers Conference 2020. It's going to be June 22nd, and they also say it's going to be digitally carried out. And then for the Apple and Health topic, there was an Apple Watch of an 80-year-old German woman and that reported and recorded heart issues that were not picked up by a hospital's 12-channel ECG, but she was later treated successfully with stents. So the Apple Watch did another good thing. And as far as COVID-19 goes, Apple has started to open a few retail stores, but they have restrictions that they're going to comply with. The maximum number of people in the store is going to be limited. They're going to check the temperature of employees and people who visit, and they want masks on for employees and visitors. And if you don't have a mask, they're going to provide one. And they're going to have fewer items on display to encourage social distancing. And also on May 3rd, Tim Cook delivered an online digital commencement address to the 2020 Ohio State University graduates. And also, since some of the Apple stores in the US are starting to open with restrictions, but Simutech still has curbside service available, and their hours are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and they're closed Saturday and Sunday. And they're still on the southeast corner of Fort Lowell and Country Club. The 5th anniversary of Apple's watch was April 24th, and they celebrated it and provided us an image of what it might have looked like way back when. And of course, this is more like what it is now today. And this is the solid gold one. And on April 26th, there was an article online that said the iPhone SE 2020 outclasses everything out there thanks to Apple's A13 chip. And the article had an expert contributor who said Apple's A13 chip is a remarkable piece of silicon, and it outperforms everything else on the market at any price.
Yep, I got one. I love
Oh,
it.
right. In the category of rumors, there was supposed to be a larger iPhone SE later this year, but it's not going to ship until maybe late in 2021. How about a new 23-inch iMac later this year? And how about a 28.5-inch model and a 30-inch model? And they're thinking that might be a result of reducing the iMac's bezels. How about an 11-inch iPad Air? And Apple may be working on windows that automatically change tint due to a recent patent application. People are thinking it might be for buildings and vehicles. We'll have to wait and see if any of those things happen. But that's what's going on around online now as far as rumors go. And there's more rumors about an ARM CPU powered Mac maybe in next year. And how about the next Apple Watch having sleep tracking and longer battery life and a pulse oximeter and hyperventilation and mental health abnormalities detection? And now that the 13-inch MacBook Pro has been upgraded, is the rumored ARM 14-inch model going to come next year? Who knows? And macOS 10.15 Catalina, Other World Computing, has reported that the 10.15.4 hangs when copying files and that the 10.15.5 beta fixes it. And as far as nostalgia goes, there's a replica of an Apple-sponsored 1979 Porsche race car, and it's on sale for close to $500,000. It's not the long-rumored Apple car, but it's a replica of the extremely rare Porsche race car that once raced at Le Mans. And it's listed for sale and being sold by the Atlantis Motor Group. It's priced at $500,000 or at a more reasonable $4,415 per month. And it's a replica of the race car Apple once sponsored in 1980. And that's what it looks like. And that's a replica.
You know how many months we'd have to pay on that?
Microsoft has formally changed the name of its subscription Office suite, and Office 365 becomes Microsoft 365. But if you've got a non-subscription suite, you're going to have the same name you had as before. As Office 2019 stays Office 2019. And then there's Apple supplier TSMC, and they have announced plans are going to build a chip factory here in Arizona. And it's the world's largest contract manufacturer of silicon chipsets, and Apple's primary supplier of the A series chips. And
Excuse me, but somebody's not muted.
they expect to begin in 2021 with production of up to 20,000 wafers per month, which will start in 2024. They hope to have 1,600 high-tech jobs. And of course, when you see us face to face, we'll still have our cloth logos for sale. Thanks for your attention on this part of my presentation. And here we go now to the security part of my presentation. Adobe, of course, has upgraded Acrobat and Reader. And the advice still is, don't have Adobe Flash Player. And Google has updated Chrome for both iOS and the Mac OS. And Mozilla has updated both versions of Firefox as well. And Microsoft has its products down there. You can see they're patched with security fixes. And Apple has released iOS 13.4.1 for the iPhone SE 2020, and it also has some security fixes in it. And other software that got security patches, Chromium, WordPress, and Zoom. Now there's an online audit about Apple's iOS devices being actively and remotely hacked by an unpatched zero-click email attack on the Apple Mail application. iOS 6 through iOS 13 are affected, which means way back in September 2012 through today. So we're advised to use Outlook and Gmail, which are not affected until a permanent iOS fix is released by Apple, and the iOS 13.4.5 beta patched it okay. So be on the lookout for that. Malvertising. And there's a bunch of fake sites out there that are trying to trick you into installing malware. And of course, Malwarebytes, this is a fake site. And it's hosted in the Soviet Union, I believe. And here they're trying to get you to upgrade the Flash player. And this is a phony Flash player update. And here's another phony one. The only way to update Flash player, if you really still have it, is to go to Adobe itself by yourself and don't click on any pop-ups. And we got another Flash player and another one. And of course, the latest Macworld Online update as far as what they feel is the best antivirus software for Macs. The free version they like best is the Avast Free Mac Security. And the best paid version they like is Sophos Home Premium for Mac. And that's it for me. And thanks for your attention all over.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you. Thanks, Ridge.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Ridge. Next on our agenda is Tony, who's going to give us some of the details about Apple's new product announcement with the 13-inch MacBook Pro. Tony? Tony, if you're speaking, we're not hearing.
Can't hear you, Tony.
Okay, now that should work.
It is. Thank you, Tony.
Okay.
Yes.
So the big announcement that Apple made was the 13-inch MacBook Pro. They have replaced the scissor switch keyboard with the new Magic keyboard.
It's a Swiss keyboard.
Well, it's not the, I guess it's not the butterfly keyboard,
Correct.
butterfly style. So it includes Touch ID. Very similar. It's got 2 or 4 Thunderbolt ports, the audio jack. It's almost the same as the 2016 version. The big change is there's a 10th generation quad-core i5 processor, which is the most current Intel processor that's available for laptops. They've also doubled the possibilities for storage. You can now get up to 4 terabytes of hard drive storage. And they've also upped the memory. The default configurations are 8 gigabytes or 16 gigabytes, and you can upgrade it to 32. The keyboard, on here you'll notice that there's a physical escape key now. They finally realized that that is really annoying on the original touch bar. And so it's actually a physical escape key, but then the touch bar is the same as it was. The price points, so for the lower end machines, the 8th gen Intel Core i5, it's $1299 and $1499. When you move up to the 10th gen, it comes with 16 gigabytes, 512 or 1 terabyte, $1799 and $1999. And if you max out the machine, go up to a faster i7 processor, $200, 32 gig of RAM, and bump your storage up to 1,000 to 4 terabytes, it's $3,600. Seems to me like high-end Apple laptops have cost about $3,600 for the past 15 years now. So those are the details on the new MacBook Pro. Are there any questions?
Any delivery issues?
I don't think there's going to be delivery issues. They have started ramping up their factories, and it should be being delivered. Obviously, it's going to depend on your delivery service and how they are operating. There has been some backup from Amazon. They've been slower than their normal Prime deliveries, but I haven't heard of anything in terms of Apple having trouble getting the machines.
Tony, Bob Doms, quick question. I've got a 13-inch 2016 model. Would you know off the top of your head if any of those features could be upgraded?
Any of the features in?
Well, that they're offering in the new 13-inch.
It's the exact same. The memory is soldered on the motherboard. The SSD is pretty much the same as it was before. I seem to recall it's not updatable even on the 2016 for the size of the SSD.
Are there any other questions for Tony? Jerry, I saw your lips moving before, but you're muted. You got anything to
No. Cockpit error.
10-4, good buddy. Okay, in that case, thank you, Tony. Appreciate your help and your work. And we're going to turn it over to Melissa and Roger. I guess they'll have to duke it out as to who's going to start this, or maybe they've already figured that out. So go ahead, guys.
Okay, so I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. I haven't tried this yet, so bear with me. I got my system preferences ready to go. Okay. So many windows. All right. Where is share screen? Now, I'm going to put it in, I guess, play mode first, and then share the screen. Can I do that? No. Doesn't look like it. So tell me if you can see it. How am I going to know if you see it or not?
Can't see it.
Seeing your screen so far.
There's nothing on the screen so far?
Just you and
Your-
the rest of us.
Your face, that's all.
Okay, so does that mean I need to switch then? Oh my God, there's so many windows. Okay, so 1 and 2. So I guess it wants to look at screen. I have it on screen 1. So I have to switch them somehow. What if I do that? That's desktop 2. Share. I don't want to share that one though. I want to share desktop 1.
When you have two monitors, it's
Yeah, I
great,
do.
except when you have this problem.
Yeah.
You don't know,
It's
now
not-
you have double the problems.
Right, it's not obvious. So if I go and I share this, okay. So I think I have to do that. Now what do you
Coming
see?
through now.
Okay, but do you see all my notes and everything?
Yeah, we see all the
Um,
notes.
So if I click play, then you still see it though, right?
Oh, it
we're
looks
st-
good
we're
now.
still seeing the presenter view, not the view you
Yeah.
want us to see, Melissa.
Right, so that's what I'm trying to figure out how to switch, and Zoom is not really being forthcoming about. Okay. Because I really don't want to have to switch my display. I'm looking to see where the heck the... Can you switch screens? If I switch screens, they don't make this very easy for you, do they? I really don't want to spend the whole time trying to do this. I might just have to show my presenter's notes if that's okay.
No, it's okay.
There's no other window. Okay, let me try stop sharing. And I'll try sharing it again.
No, Melissa, what you just had was fine.
Yeah,
We just saw your main screen. That was good.
it was? Okay, but you can still see all the notes and everything, can't you?
No. we
Yeah,
didn't.
I can.
Yeah, we
Down
saw
at the
the
bottom.
notes on the left-hand side.
No, those aren't the notes. That's part of
Oh.
her slide.
Okay, well then let me do that again then. I wish I could see what you see. That's what's frustrating about it. Okay, so I'm gonna try that again. All right, tell me what you can see.
Yeah. So that's your just your main slide. That's good.
Okay. All right, I think we're ready to go then. Can you see like the whole slide and everything?
Yes.
Oh, okay, dokie.
You
Okay,
need to say play so we don't see the whole list of your slides.
Yeah, hit
When
play.
when I do that though, then I can't see my notes. So I'm gonna click play. Now what do you see?
Oh, yeah. Now we're seeing your presenter notes.
Right, and see, I have 2 monitors, so what I want you to see is on the other monitor. So I think what I'll do is stop sharing it and switch. I'm gonna switch the screens instead of desktop 1, because it gives you a choice. So I'm gonna go to share screen, and then I'm gonna choose desktop 2 this time and see what happens. Okay. But now I can't see it. Zoom hijacks the screen. I can't see what I'm doing. Okay, now what do you see?
We just
This
see
is
your
what you
main
want us to
slide.
see.
Okay, good. All right, I think this is good. All right, so we're going to talk about digital legacy. And it's not the most cheeriest of topics, but it's something that's really important. And Bob asked me to present on it a while ago, and I guess I probably bragged too much about the kind of work that I do. I sometimes help people with their files when their loved ones have passed away. And I'm also, we lost a loved one just a few years ago, and it gave me a lot of things to think about, what happens after you pass away to all your stuff. So we're going to talk about digital legacy and what it is. So how often do you think about the legacy that you'll leave behind? Has there ever been someone in your life who's passed on and you wish you had more time with them, or something to do to help make the transition a little easier? A digital legacy can help to bridge that gap. It's a different kind of digital divide. Just like physical stuff, though, it can get overwhelming. So a lot of times we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to think about it. We have enough to deal with when it comes to all the stuff that we accumulate. This can be just one more burden. Maybe we think that it's not that important, or why should we take ourselves so seriously? Let somebody else clean up after we're gone. It can all go in the dumpster. What do I care once I'm gone? Maybe we just don't know where to start because it's overwhelming. I'd like to offer a shift in those attitudes. I'd like to get you thinking about what you can do so that you can feel more in control in a world where we feel like control is just out of reach. So for an overview here, digital legacy is a broader discussion, but here is an overview of 5 main topics. I've tried to develop an introduction to get us started or help encourage us to all pick up where we left off. My goal is to get us thinking about our own digital legacy and to understand the importance of it, because it really isn't just all about us. We are all connected to other people in more ways than ever before. In my experiences as a consultant and as a friend and as a family member, I observe a lot of unnecessary frustrations that could be mitigated if we could all just do our parts and make things less burdensome, both for ourselves and for those we care about. So I broke it down into 5 main categories, and there's a lot to go over. We're probably not going to get through all of it, but we'll try to get through as much as we can. So the definition. When I was researching for this project, I kept seeing the terms digital estate and digital legacy, and they were used interchangeably. It tended to depend on who was writing about it and what their motive was. For example, lawyer blogs talked a lot about digital assets and digital estates. Services that assist with online identity or social media tend to view digital legacy as something that's mostly online, like your last tweet or your last Facebook post and everything that came before it. The more I read, the more I saw that it's a combination of all those things we cultivate while we're alive. It's something we strive for. So I came up with the following definition based on all the different things that I read about the subject. It's a sum of all the parts. So this is how I define digital legacy. Digital assets are what make up someone's digital estate and become their digital legacy after they pass away. These are the digitized possessions that have been created, generated, purchased, or licensed, which are stored on digital devices or available from online services. Some of them will have emotional value, such as photos, home movies, or social media posts, while others will have financial value, as in the case of PayPal, Square, Etsy, Amazon, or eBay seller accounts. So here's what composes digital assets. Here's some different examples. They can include documents, notes, scans, voice memos, genealogy documents, photos, podcasts, or audio recordings, like maybe if you do voice memos. Original source code, I put that there because a lot of people are coding nowadays, and they probably have that saved on their computer. You wouldn't want to lose that in case somebody was going to continue the project. Home movies, ebooks, software, websites, blogs, domain names, social media accounts, email attachments and emails, text messages, gaming profiles, shared photo albums, like if you have a Flickr account, video channels like YouTube, and music, your MP3s or your ripped CDs. So take a look at this list and just think to yourself, how many of those things do you have? These types of assets are usually stored on any combination of hardware devices, both local and remote, such as desktop computers, laptop computers, external hard drives or camera cards, flash drives, mobile phones, tablets, digital photo frames, or digital music players like iPods. Do you see maybe a remote control drone laying around in your home? There's a good chance that there's video footage or photos that are stored on a chip inside of it, and that's called a micro SD card. And that can be accessed by a computer using a card reader. So take a look at this list and think about all the types of things that you have digital things stored on. And then this is about cloud computing. A lot of people wonder what that is. Online service providers are remote computers. So if you think about like a server farm somewhere remotely that then connects to all of our computers remotely, and they host the types of digital assets that can be browsed, streamed, downloaded, installed, stored by way of synchronization, like iCloud, or uploaded for remote archiving, like if you maybe subscribe to an Amazon uploading service for storing your files. So if we go back to this digital assets slide here, I highlighted some of the things because those are the types of digital assets that we would think of that are mostly online. Like you can have hard drives, you could have a computer that's not connected to the internet, and it might store some of those other things. But these are the things that we typically think of that we access from online media. So I highlighted those just to kind of give you an idea of, you know, those kinds of things exist both on your hard drive, and then there's a copy of them that's uploaded to the web, to the cloud. So they're online. And then if we talk about ownership, like who owns all of these digital assets? Ownership of your digital assets and who maintains your digital legacy will depend on the instructions you leave behind, combined with digital rights that are governed by the service provider policies that are in place for the services and products that you have used. Each online service has their own privacy and end-of-life policy. There may be some digital assets which are licensed and considered non-transferable, so it's important to know that ahead of time. It could mean the difference between whether your online digital legacy is something that can be protected or left to the online trolls and the identity thieves. So one example would be like if you have a website, you need to, and this is something that I need to do too. So as I was making this, I was kind of making my own mental list of stuff that I need to do. And I need to look at my domain registrar and see what it says in their terms of service, in their contract. Will it be transferable? Because I've already told my husband if I get hit by a bus, I want him to be able to maintain my blog and keep it going, or at least archive it or do something with it. Legality, so I'm just going to go over this briefly. There's a lot more to this, as you can imagine, and I'm going to put that in some show notes together. I have a whole bunch of links and resources. So briefly, just a little bit about legality. In Arizona, you should have something in writing that provides consent to a digital executor of your choosing who will access your digital assets should you become incapacitated or pass away. A letter of instruction should be kept in the same securely accessible place as a living will. Like you have a living will if you're incapacitated but still alive but you need help, or a final will and testament for after death, obviously. And you need to have instructions with that for locating and accessing your digital asset inventory, talk about that in a minute, and or password manager, talk about that too. In the case of Apple services, for example, they will require a lot more time-consuming legal work, so it's best that you be certain that you leave instructions including your Apple ID, which is that email address, and its password, or you might inadvertently cut off your own digital executor and any beneficiaries you hoped to name, as in the case of iCloud family sharing. I'll talk about that a little bit later too. It should also note whether an online digital tool is in play, such as a legacy contact in the case of social media, like Facebook. I'll talk about that too. The latter, the legacy contact, that supersedes the digital executor if that person is different from the legacy contact you've chosen. And there'll be more information about that stuff too. So I call this list applications. These are all the individual things that I think make up what you put together as your digital legacy. And we're just gonna try, we're probably only gonna be able to get through a couple of them, but this is the overall list, and this would be like a teaser for later, so we can dive deeper into some of the other topics. But this is a list of things to consider and how they can be applied in our lives when it comes to curating and managing the digital assets that make up the totality of our digital estate. So let's go through just a couple. So digital asset inventory. This is what you will utilize to plan and organize your digital estate. You can start with a list of your digital assets, like we described earlier. Just put them in a spreadsheet or a list, and then add to it everything someone might need to access data on your behalf for the purposes of curating, retiring, deleting, maintaining, or inheriting your assets. Keep this list up to date and accessible by someone you trust. Even if you have an accident or a stroke that leaves you incapacitated, someone will still need to be able to access this list to assist you, so it would be a good thing to keep it with your living will. An inventory could mean a series of folders containing PDFs, text documents, and spreadsheets, for example. You may already be storing the original hard copies of important paperwork in a safe or a safety deposit box, like your will, your military service and health records, deeds, titles. So why not make a digitized scan of them and store them in a folder on your hard drive marked for your digital executor? This would also be a good place to keep a digital record of the contents of the safe or safety deposit box. This could be the place that the digital executor stores a digital copy of the death certificate so that they can easily access it when needed to close out online accounts or gain access to an account that might have become compromised. So gone are the days, or at least becoming gone are the days, are all those papers and filing cabinets. Now everything is being digitized. And then a password manager, super important. Use a password manager to manage most of your digital asset inventory. So your digital asset inventory, like I said, it's going to be, maybe loosely digital files, as if it were loosely in a folder, a manila folder, but in a digitized version. But a password manager can store a lot. So details that need to be maintained on a regular basis will be kept up to date a lot easier if you use a password manager compared to, say, manually updating a spreadsheet. A password manager like 1Password helps you maintain more than just passwords. It has different categories of database entries, one of which is a credit card. So for example, you can input the data to include all the details that are printed on your credit cards, including the phone numbers, and then those phone numbers can be formatted in such a way that the field becomes detected as a phone number that from 1Password on your phone, you can just tap it and it will dial it. If your credit card should ever become lost or stolen, you and your digital executor will have everything needed to report the incident. Be sure to include the security questions and answers that many accounts make you pick out. They're ridiculous. Since your cellular phone will most likely be used as a second factor for authentication, ensure that that phone number can stay active for as long as it takes to finish executing your instructions for account access and closure. It is advisable to print a hard copy of the most crucial details, like a master password with emergency contact information. If one of your devices cannot be accessed, this will solve the problem provided you noted the passcode. Be certain to keep it in a very safe place. While you can print a hard copy of the entire database, know that it may not be current when it's needed most, so review it often. And then I have a tip for you about using tags in 1Password. If any of you are familiar with 1Password, I think we have a lot of 1Password users here. If you use tags, then you can just select the items in the tag, like say if you called it critical, for example, and then you don't have to print out the entire 63-page vault, and it might only just be a few pages. So one more comment that I had about that was, if you're on the fence about using a digital password manager, most reviews by security professionals say that the benefits outweigh the risks. So think seatbelts. And then here is an example of my tip here. So this is a demo vault that I have, and you can see that on the left side, I'm using tags, and I called this one particular tag critical. And then I put 7 things, I tagged 7 things that I thought would be critical pieces of information, just for an example here. And you can see that it's only gonna end up being 3 pages. So this could be easily stored, folded up and given to somebody, or stored in, say, your safety deposit box or your safe. So you don't have to print out the whole thing. And then the next slide is going to be about photo or video management. And I just have a comment, and then I was thinking maybe if Roger wants to chime in on this one. My comment about this is that you should organize your photos library on your Mac or your iPhone. There are many different apps and online services that can assist you with this, so carefully consider the details for how it could be accessed after you pass. Will the app you've chosen still work or be kept up to date on the device that's being accessed by your digital executor? You wouldn't want a subscription service that's run out to lock your loved ones out of seeing the photos that you've been curating for them. Embrace behavior modification now. Photo document what you feel is important, but purge the unnecessary immediately and review regularly. Scan your old printed photos before they degrade. Take pictures of physical items like heirlooms and document stories that can be passed down to future generations. It could prove really useful for managing the estate that isn't digital. Roger, did you want to talk about video management?
Well, I think that I'm sure you've heard this, and many others here have, is the thing that if someone is not backing up and their internal hard drive dies, the thing they're most concerned about is losing their photos, their images. and or videos. So that's something that should be emphasized to remind people that they don't want to lose that.
Mhm.
So they need to take precautions as far as doing a good backup strategy.
Very, 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 very crucial, I think. Especially videos. I mean, they take up a lot of space. So you're going to want to make sure that you have the appropriate drives and the appropriate amount of space to store them on. And that can be a bit of a challenge. And then you really shouldn't have just one copy. So let's talk about the digital executor. The digital executor is also known as a personal representative. Like right now, this is still kind of a new frontier, if you will. So digital executor isn't the most common term, especially when it comes to legal documents. So it's usually talked about as a personal representative. You'll want to choose someone you trust who can assist or execute the details of your written or hard copy instructions. Most of your digital assets will not pass through a will due to licensing and policy rates. So a separate letter or set of instructions is important to have along with your will. Your digital executor may need to ask someone to help them if they're not fond of tech yet. So detailed instructions will be key. You might be able to read your own handwriting, but someone else may struggle making an already time-consuming process that much harder. One of the first digital executor priorities should be to close out accounts that could be used to hijack your identity. This is important because leaving accounts open to hacking could prevent the rest of the responsibilities from being carried out. Think about what you want to remain private and take the necessary steps to leave access to that information off your instructions or delete the account or data altogether, if possible. Consider deleting hurtful text messages or emails ahead of time if you can. When it comes to accessing devices, you might consider having a close and trusted person add their fingerprint to your Touch ID or their face to your Face ID or any other biometrics you might use. Have them test it regularly to make sure it still works as expected so they can access and unlock a device when needed quickly. They will still need the passcode in the event that your device reboots or has timed out, which, so don't just think you can get away with a fingerprint. You're going to have to know that code too. So be sure that you have it stored in a secure and accessible location. It will be one of the very first pieces of information needed by your digital executor. And I'm going to go back to that slide that shows this. You could put these details on in here where it's printed out in your 1Password or any password manager of your choosing. So letter of instruction. You want to write, sign, and have witnessed a letter of instruction, including where to find and how to access your password manager and digital asset inventory, along with any pertinent documents, which may be in PDF format on a device or scans, things like that. If you have a living will or a final will, include instructions for your digital executor. Enlist the services of a technical support person that you trust to assist the digital executor, and consider putting their contact info in your instructions. So, your favorite tech consultant here on this panel, you can put their business card in that digital asset inventory. Try to have instructions and passwords in a format which uses a font that clearly shows when a letter is capitalized or when it's a number that could be mistaken for a letter. So for example, the letter L could look like a 1. So if you are handwriting it, make sure that it's very, very clear to understand. If you are not going to use a password manager, but say you put it into a spreadsheet or you type it up on, say, a word processor, make sure that you're using a font that clearly shows the difference between the number 1 and the letter L. Having instructions can make things less confusing for surviving children, as siblings tend to stress and fight over the details or end up feeling full of despair from being overwhelmed with what to do. Are we having fun yet?
Melissa,
yeah.
It would be possible for you to increase your output volume. It's a little hard for me to hear you.
Okay, if I get a little bit closer, is that better? How's that?
Much better.
Okay, cool. Shared digital assets. So consider digital assets that you share with others, like music or streaming or subscription services, for which you are the primary list on the account. Your internet service provider is one such account if you and a spouse or a family subscribe to a cable TV and internet plan. Locate instructions for how to switch a primary account to your designated heir. If you maintained a website or blog, make it clear what you want to happen to your domain and to your domain name and website. For many, that truly is their outward-facing digital legacy, and they would want it to be maintained or retired gracefully. Depending on the domain, the only option may be to archive it if the license is not transferable. Don't leave your business partner or volunteer group in the dark. If you were the admin of a particular service or account, be sure others on the team have access to that information. Create a separate digital access inventory for those business or volunteer items. Always have an HBAP ready that's hit by a bus plan. Contacts. Keep your contacts and address book up to date as best you can. Avoid storing passwords in it. It's not the right tool for the job. A digital contact list could be uploaded to remote servers when you grant permission to apps for the purposes of making the app more useful, yet exposing details about you or your loved ones that they shouldn't have. Your trusted person will want to be able to contact people on their own or designate someone else for that role when you pass. So make this task easier to navigate in case it's been assigned to someone who didn't know all the same people as well as an overwhelmed loved one may have. Autopay and subscription services. Consider services that are paid for using an autopay that may continue to drain financial assets away from your beneficiaries. Also consider accounts or subscription services that require payment on a recurring basis, which could limit or deny access until a bill is paid. Be sure to include details in your digital asset inventory about which payment methods are on file with a particular service. If these are services you want a beneficiary to continue, they will need to provide a new payment method before canceling your credit cards so there is no interruption to service. Maybe you have an Amazon credit card for which you use to pay your annual Prime fee, but you use a Visa for the iCloud family shared service and a MasterCard for the internet bill each month. The expiration dates on those cards need to be updated with those accounts regularly, so update the password manager list as well. These are all details that you should store in writing, that it's easy to read, easy to locate, and you can put a lot of this stuff, if not most all of it, into a password manager. Terms of service. It's a huge pain. We hate those terms of service agreements. Nobody reads them. Well, I know it's a huge pain, but try to prioritize the services and digital products you use the most that might have something in place that says that they have the right to determine what happens to your data when you pass away. Review each contract as best you can and know what the agreements say. Download a copy of the agreement and annotate it with highlights and notes, then store it in your digital asset inventory. These services will likely be tipped off when their bill has not been paid, and they could block access to your loved ones who won't be able to regain access without more legal hurdles to navigate. Journal. Use the Notes app, Pages, or a journaling app like Day One, but consider the longevity of the file formats containing your words, photos, movies, etc. Microsoft Word has been around for a really long time. They have now made it free to view Word docs, but to print or modify the files will cost you some money each year to buy a subscription or for a month. Apple's iWork Pages has also been around about as long in some form or another and has historically been able to open Word docs. Pages comes with each new device for free, so for a basic word processing app, it seems to have history on its side and most likely the future as well. Try to leave stories or letters behind for loved ones to find. Learn how to use the dictation feature in your iPhone so that you can speak the notes. If you don't like typing with the on-screen keyboard, try using a paired Bluetooth keyboard instead. Consider your future self and afflictions such as memory loss. How you remember things now may not be how you remember them later, if at all. Write what you can remember now before it's too late. And before you lose your place. Document things multiple times if needed. Embrace the power of search and keywords. Try to write enough detail so that even if you only remember a portion of it, what you might remember can be searched to locate it later. If there is something that you don't want loved ones to see after you're gone, then purge it now or don't include access credentials to it for your digital executor. Or write explicit instructions for how to destroy certain parts of your digital legacy. Be a good friend and delete my browser history, would ya? I was writing a murder mystery and never got around to finishing it. So that could be one example. Back to storage and media, like we saw that list prior, backup, backup, backup. Use a 3-2-1 backup strategy. which means keep 3 copies of your data at all times and have 2 of them local, but using 2 different media where one of the copies is offsite. Try to avoid CDs or DVDs because over time, the gelatin can break down and corrupt data stored on the disk if it's not stored in a temperature-controlled environment. Consider SD cards, solid-state drives, or flash drives as they do not have moving parts. If you do use hard disk drives, they have moving platters and will need to be spun up periodically to make sure that they're in working order. Have a good labeling and inventory system. Tape loses its adherence and fades over time. Use labels that are of archival quality and stick them to cases that contain your drives. Regularly inspect and spot check your data. Leave instructions for where this data is stored, how to access it, and how it should be maintained. Purchase hard drives from different batches or manufacturers. You can check the Backblaze report for brands with low failure rate. And they just issued that report not long ago, and Ridge usually reports on that. And you can ask Doriana how much I love labels. And then this was just what I was going to save for later if we have a little bit of time. This is just the legality of things. Since the law is relatively new and hasn't yet caught up with everything digital, here's an example that could play out in other cases besides just Facebook. So just something to think about. So let's say that your spouse is your digital executor, but they don't care much for social media, nor do they prioritize using their services the way that you do. For you, it might be very important that your online community has access to and can receive communication about your passing or details you want relayed via social media. If your spouse is the digital executor, they might not have the interest or the know-how to execute your wishes in that format. They might even see it fit to delete the account. With a trusted legacy contact in place who is better suited to utilize the platform in the way that you wish, their role would then override your spouse's ability to delete your account or neglect it entirely. Think about who might be the best fit for these roles and who will make the best decisions. It's really important that any social media accounts you leave behind are managed and dealt with in order to protect your legacy from identity theft, which can rob your loved ones of access when they need it. Your children, grandchildren, and friends may find your online digital legacy of social media posts to be of great value or even comfort, so it's an investment you should consider protecting. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you, Melissa. That was excellent.
I'm glad you
Yeah,
liked it.
nicely done.
Very nicely done.
Thank you, Melissa. It's wonderful, and you certainly have a real nice set of graphics in there. I think that the stuff that you've gone through is probably will need to go through again in the future,
Yeah,
looking
maybe
at
in more
only
detail.
1 or 2 of those segments and then going deeper into each one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so don't throw any of that stuff away because we're going to go around several times, I suspect.
Okay. Oh, good.
I think so too.
And I just
Now,
want a comment.
Mhm.
When I asked my kids about my pictures, they said, please just mark your favorites. We're going to throw the rest of them away anyhow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but that'll take them a while.
Melissa, you need to unshare your screen.
Yep. Okay, stop share there. All right, am I back?
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I have, Roger, do you have anything to add, or
Yes, I do.
then go right ahead?
Melissa, you have a great knack for design.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy it. It's what I went to college for, so I got to use it sometime.
Well, the money well spent.
Thank you.
Okay. So before we close out, I have something to share with you that is sort of ancillary to what we've just been talking about. Now, by the show of hands, how many of you have a shoebox or a banker's box or some storage of photos out there that, yeah, I need to get through those things and get them scanned and get them digitized and get them labeled. I was lucky enough or foresightful enough that I took a bunch of photos to my mother before she passed and said, here's some stickers, write who, what, when, where, and why, and put them on the back of all these things. So at least I have some of that information. But one of the photographic podcasters, his name is Derek Story, he's a podcaster, a photographer, a teacher, and he does workshops. And I want to go quickly through, let's see, that's the one I want, I think. So are you guys now seeing Safari over here?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So this is Derek Story's main website, the digital story, Derek Story, digital story, get it? And he has something here that he just talked about in his last podcast that really has nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight, but is kind of an interesting thing dealing with the current pandemic. He's encouraging us all to go to those locally owned, locally operated, one-of-a-kind restaurants and stuff, and calling them up, ordering their stuff, and going to get it picked up. And when you do, take a picture of the restaurant, take a picture of the person, and post it to social media. Maybe this will get a few more people to go to this place, to, as you can see here, a pizza place rather than McDonald's or something like that, and maybe help keep these people alive. If we all did that once a week or something, I think that might help. But that's not what I'm really here to talk about. I want to talk about his workshops. He had 4 workshops scheduled for 2020, and most of them are not going to happen. There's still one, it's a possibility, and this is the Eastern Sierra Photography Workshop in the autumn. But again, this is not really what I'm here to talk about. What I want to talk about is this one here, Digitizing Family Memories. It's an online course. He has it planned to take 4 weeks, and it will help you go through that shoebox, get the stuff scanned, and get it digitized and organized and put in a place where you can find it later and pass it on in the future. The course is value priced, I think, at $45, but he has reduced the price to $39. But wait, there's more. I have been in contact with him by email and told him that I was going to put this up on our website and talk about it a little bit tonight. And he's offering TMUG members a 30% discount. That brings that $39 down to something in the $27 range. And I think that this is, if you have that shoebox of family snapshots or trays of slides, this is probably something that you might want to do. And you can get that 30% discount. I have posted it on our forums. And if there's anybody here who really, really wants it, when I'm done here, raise your hand and I will, let's see, I think it is DFM 30, Digitizing Family Memories 30. I have purchased it. For myself. I know our new friend Chris Wesselman has purchased it as well. And I think that there's probably several of us here tonight who could benefit by this workshop. And for the price, how can you lose? So let's see, I'm going to unshare here and ask for questions. Are there any questions? Kurt, you need to unmute.
We went through this shoebox routine, and there were 4 boxes of photos from the family, 3,500 photos, something like that, which I sent off and had digitized a few years ago. And they sent them back on CDs, and I made copies of those so that all the kids each got CDs with all this stuff on it, which is, that's great. You've done all this stuff. The problem is that back in the day when you had film camera, you took pictures and, there are these little bundles of pictures. Now you've got literally thousands of photos just on your phone, much less everywhere else. And those are the ones which I think represent the bigger problem, frankly, than all of digitized film photos that are now safely done. But what do you do with the ones that you took last week, last year? Thousands of them.
Melissa, how many family photos do you have on your phone?
I'm up to over 65,000 now, and about 2,000 videos just in iCloud. That's why I said delete now. Delete now.
The trick is gathering that who, what, when, where, why information and marrying it with the digital file. So your children's grandchildren can look back, boy, they had some funny clothes back there, didn't they?
Oh, my brother-in-law scanned a whole bunch of pictures from back in the 60s and 70s. I mean, just like what Kurt was saying. And he got a really nice flatbed scanner, and he spent like the whole Christmas holiday one time a couple years ago. And he scanned them all in really high resolution and everything. And then what I did was I took them all. He gave us CDs or on a drive or something. And then I took those files and I put them into photos. And then I created a shared iCloud album. And when it came in really, really handy because when my father-in-law passed away a couple of years ago, I was able to pick through those pictures and then create an album just for him and just like a memories album. So that was a nice like memorial. And like I said in the presentation, I'm encouraging people to go into your photos library, and you can, get info and add captions or descriptions to the photo. And that's where I'm saying that people should start storing that metadata, because that all gets backed up too. So, favorite them, put little hearts on them, make albums, purge early, purge often, just get in the habit. That's why I said embrace the behavior modification now. Just get yourself in the habit. And even though I have 65,000 pictures, over the last several years, I'm like, whoa, this is getting out of hand. I mean, my excuse is that I have little kids who are always running around, and you have to take 12 pictures to get one, and then I get distracted, and then I don't go through and purge the other 11 pictures that so don't be like me.
My photographic mentor was an uncle of mine. And he said, the secret is only show your best photographs when you're showing them to somebody else. Then they'll think you're a wonderful photographer. But you're right, Melissa, show the 1 out of 12 that is the ones to show. Okay, if there are any other questions about this, in that case, I think I want, this is a point where I would normally say, drive safely on the way home and come and see us again next month. But so this month I'm going to say, wear a mask, wash your hands, don't touch your face when you're in the grocery store, and come back and see us again next month. Have a good month and be here so we can see you again next month.
And wear blue blocking glasses.
Okay,
I was
blue
going to
blocker.
ask you about that. Do those really work? Because I was thinking about getting some. Are they yellow
Yeah, I
ones?
think so.
Is there any scientific evidence that they really work, or are they just a gimmick?
Oh no, there's opticians do it. So
Yeah. Okay.
My optometrist says here in Arizona we should never go out without sunglasses, and they should be blue blocking sunglasses.
Okay. Interesting.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I need to send somebody my check for my dues. Is it the address that's on the website? or is there another address to send it to?
It's the PO box that's on the website.
Okay.
Let me find it for you just to make sure we're both looking at the same thing here.
Kurt, did you figure out how to change your background?
Me?
Yeah.
I can't.
Oh, you
He has
can't?
to upgrade his computer.
Oh, really? Oh, is that why? Okay.
Processor's not strong enough.
Aha.
PO
Our-
Box 43176.
Correct. Tucson 85733. Very good. Good night. Be safe. Come back and see us again next month.
That was fun.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
Fun and morbid. Sorry.
Yeah. Well,
But it's important.
reality.
It really is.
I tried to be cheery about it.
It was good. It was good.
Good. I'm glad.
Thanks, everybody. Looked great.
All right.
Okay.
Well, see you
Have a
next
good
time.
evening. Adios.
Adios, amigos.